I'm defying all the odds. No matter what's against me now. No matter what. I once lost all my hope, but now it's finally found. Defying all the odds, I found the strength inside me, and no matter what, ain't nothing gonna defeat me. I've been at the bottom, I lost hope, I gave up, came back, and that's when your boy came up. Everywhere that I look, I see another lost soul, and if you listen to my story, maybe it will help you on. No matter how long you've been on the road that you were on, you don't have to become a statistic or a sad song. I told all these haters I'm going straight to the top. They don't want to see me win, they want to see me just drop. And that's pretty funny, the devil's the same way. I paused for a minute, but now it's time that I play. Understand this disease, it doesn't discriminate. Have your right or die, brother, lie straight to your face. And I understand, so I don't hold it against you. I have demons, I know that you do too.
Love you, Mark Gibson. Hi, Paul. What's up, Kevin? Love you, Mark Gibson. I'm getting some feedback here. I'm going to turn that off. Somebody's got their playback on in the background. Is that you, Chris?
Probably.
I can hear it feeding back through your.
Oh, I got it out now.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Survivor Series. We have a special presentation tonight, Thursday night. We have an amazing guest. I want to welcome everyone to the show. Welcome everyone that keeps coming back week after week. The Survivor Series is about celebrating recovery, celebrating the lives of people in recovery, celebrating those that want to step out of the shadows and share their experience, strength, and hope with us, in hopes that we're going to help somebody else out there struggling. We have guests from all sides of the addiction issue, and educators, celebrities, and many other of the population out there that want to be a part of the solution today. And we have an amazing guest today, and Richard Jones from FAVOR Greenville, South Carolina, baby. And,
wow.
And the Recovery Cartel. So
good deal.
Please welcome Rich to the show. Thank you, Rich. Thank you. You know, I'm telling you, expressing my gratitude to you before the show for jumping on the No More Heroin platform to share your message of hope, share some insight into the projects that you have going on. You are a credentialed professional. You have 19 years in recovery, which is amazing. Thank you for all that you do for our community, and it's an honor, true honor to have you here. And I would like to express gratitude to my co-host tonight, the one, the only, Chris Freeman. I'm so
yeah. It's good to be here with everybody, and thanks for joining us. Hope everyone gets to know Richard a little bit, like I know Richard. We got together about almost 3 years ago. Yep. I had another little thing going on with another little website, and I came across Richard, and I started reading what he was writing. And not only did I appreciate what he was doing, I was able to offer him some services with helping him out with his website, which I do. And that's the recoverycartel.com. That's where you'll find all Rich's writing and all the car rants, the real famous car rants he does. And
I love those. I love those.
Video he has.
We'll get into we'll get into his projects here later. I really want to hear more about the Recovery Cartel and what you're doing with Favor. Favor is the Faces and Voices of Recovery, Greenville, South Carolina. You're doing amazing things in your home area. But before you were Richard Jones of Favor and the Recovery Cartel, you were a person struggling with addiction. Can you paint a picture for us of what it was like for you?
Yeah, man. I mean, really, if you get into my story, from the jump growing up, I was dealing with this issue of alcohol and drugs. I didn't know it. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm the oldest of three boys. And I grew up in a house that, was a war zone, man. And it was, my father struggled with this issue. It was prescription pain pills and alcohol. And it was violent, and it was hard to understand as a little boy. It was, it was a weird thing. Like if you've ever dealt with binge drinking or binge using, where people could go a period of time without using, and then when they would use when my dad would use, it would get crazy, man. And it would be he would hit my mom, he would hit me, he would hit my brothers, and it was like I didn't know it, but I was growing up in this like very, very serious kind of adverse childhood experiences environment and trauma. And I didn't know anything about that. And this is like the 1980s. And you want to talk about stigma. I mean, you didn't say the word alcoholic and addict in the 1980s. So you just kept your mouth shut and you sort of put your head down, and you didn't talk to anybody. And so I'm this little boy, and I'm like growing up in this house and trying to figure out how to negotiate life. And I'm just scared to death. Right. And, anxious all the time, fear all over the place. And, I took my first substance was alcohol, and it was probably around the age of 13, 14 with guys in the neighborhood. But it was weird for me. It wasn't like, you'll hear people talk about how it was like love at first sight. That wasn't my experience. It was more like it over time with me. It didn't happen all at once. But you guys know the story, how this stuff unfolds. It's like one thing after the other. It's never enough. The substances, they stop working. So you're jumping up and you're graduating to whatever was there. And if I did everything that I had an opportunity to do. I said, if I didn't do something, it's because it didn't come my way. Right. And it was a lot of partying, a lot of going out, and probably for 10 years, alcohol, I had an alcohol use disorder, certainly, but with alcohol, you can get by, you can skate by. It's socially acceptable. It's kind of like promoted. I was very successful in my own career. I was a business person early on. I have a business management degree, and that was just sort of what I was focusing on, training staff, working with staff in healthcare situations. Got married, had kids, and it starts to unfold slowly but surely. But I look back in my life, and depending on what your spiritual kind of like orientation is and what you believe. I mean, I believe in God, and I believe in like things happening that you can look back on and say, "Wow, that was a blessing in disguise." Because I think I would have held on with alcohol a lot longer. When I was 29 years old, I was in a car accident. This is in Pennsylvania. I got rear-ended at a red light, and this is like ground zero for doctors being told don't let people feel pain. Right. And I walked out of the emergency room that day with 120 Darvocet, and for a neck injury, quote unquote, and. And it was game on from there, man. It was just like instantly I jumped into these pills, and I started chasing them, and I started doctor shopping. And again, this was in Western PA, and I'm telling you, like it was no problem getting doctors to write me scripts hand over fist. I mean, I would just go in there, and I wouldn't even be creative about what I'd say. I just said, I took more than I was supposed to because I was in so much pain. Right. And, and I would walk out, and I quickly became strung out on these things and everything that goes along with it, stealing other people's pills, doctor shopping, financial ruin, everything around that, because I'm paying for these pills like out of pocket, right? You can't use insurance because you can only do that once a month. And so right. I'm running around like a maniac. And then, you know, some things start to happen with my family. And I feel like everybody's journey is different. I'm not necessarily a fan of the idea of hitting bottom, because I think hitting bottom, especially in today's world, is dangerous. But I do know we all have experiences where we break. And for me, it was related to my family and my kids. You know, I married my high school sweetheart, and I love her, and I loved my kids. But what happened was, man, like I just started to put the drugs ahead of them. And I had a couple pretty big events where, you know, one of them was a car accident with everybody in the car, and it was like noon, and I'd already been drinking and eating pills all day, and I ran into somebody. And it was a series of events like that. But I will tell you the other thing, and I'm passionate about educating families because of this reason. It was my family. It was my wife, my mom, people like that who really kind of like rallied around me, that pushed me to recovery without question. Like I think I would have done my own thing for a long time and just sort of like, you know, squirreled around out there. But my family, like, you know, mobilized and learned what they needed to learn. And, you know, my wife kind of like was like, "You're not doing this shit, dude." And if she would have done that, I don't know where I'd be. Like, I remember the suicidal thinking and like the thoughts that I would have around these pills, like when you're running out. And like the thing about prescription pain pills that I hated was like, it was never okay, man. I was never relaxed. Right. Like it didn't matter if I just got like a whole new prescription, I immediately started panicking about when I was going to run out.
The next time.
Yeah. Like it was like this constant state of fear. And on this street corner, on these corners in Pittsburgh where I was working, and these buses, man, they had these dedicated bus lanes where these buses just flew up and down. And I remember if I stepped in front of one of those buses, something would be different. And again, I don't know that I get out of there if it's not for my family. So all my programs that I've been since then have always involved a strong family component. I feel like you got to get the family involved. And part of that's because of my personal experience. I didn't get this on my own. I didn't get this, you know, without them. And then my recovery story is pretty much, you know, 12-step recovery. I jumped into, honestly, like I just started going to meetings, man. I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. I didn't know what was going on. You know, I really feel like in my case, I met some people early on who I could relate to and I personally got along with. And I felt like those guys drugged me along for a long time. I don't even know that I actually planned on staying clean, if that makes sense. I just planned on going through the motions. And then life started getting good and momentum started going. And I jumped into recovery with both feet and you know, did the whole deal and working the program, sponsoring people, going to a bunch, a shit ton of meetings. And then I went back to school and became a therapist. And that kind of became almost like self-perpetuating in its own right in a different way. I've been in recovery for 19 years. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, guys.
Is the family atmosphere of therapy, is that your forte?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say probably that's the thing that distinguishes me maybe from some other drug and alcohol counselors is my orientation on family. I don't get to do a lot of private practice right now because I'm running some organizations, but when I'm doing private practice, I'll give you an example. Like I won't see the person without seeing their family. Like there's no such thing as just Rich one-on-one with Higgy. It would have to be his wife. It would have to be his kids. It would have to be the whole nine because that's how I was taught to do it. Part of it's because that's how I was taught to do therapy, but also it's what I've come to believe in.
Right. In the early days of AA, the family was really involved in the early part of recovery. You know, they talked to the family before they went to see the guy that needed the help. You know.
Yeah.
You know, you hear it all the time that the addiction is a family disease, and it truly is. It affects everyone.
And I'll tell you, where it really took off for me professionally was, well, I guess at this point, just probably about 15, 16 years ago, running an adolescent program, right? So it's one thing to work with like 40-year-olds and only work with the individual, but you start to work with like adolescents, you got to have their family involved. And
absolutely.
I had about a 5 or 6 year, well, maybe not quite that long, 3 or 4 year window where I worked with juvenile justice clients and clients who were in rehab basically through the juvenile justice system. And we worked with their families, and we got a lot of supervision and support. And man, I got to tell you, like it changed. I was like, we got it. We can't do this with everyone. It's just not feasible. But as much as possible, we got to be get mom involved, dad involved, husband, wife. And what you find is, so our model, Higgy, is this idea of like, if I was working with you, it wouldn't be just about you. I would also be asking your family to throw in. And I would be saying things like, what are you going to do for your recovery? Are you willing to go to Al-Anon? Are you willing to go to a therapist? Are you willing to do your own? A lot of times somebody else has their own substance issue that they got to work on. We kind of demanded, we sort of demand that you got to get in on this.
That's right.
Person. Now, what I have found is there's a reality of life once you start to roll that out. And, FAVOR Greenville, we work with 35,000 people. And so we just literally can't pull it off. When I finally grow up and I get to do a private practice, and that's what I'll do. But right now, we're the best we can. So what we do is we do it through groups mainly. We do it like groups, educational sessions with the family. It's not ideal, but it's sort of a version of that.
So when you're working with the adolescents, would you say that that they are a product of their environment? So
here's what I'd say, man, and I mean this with all my heart. I mean this 100. I've never met a parent who didn't love their kid, and I've worked in the situations that would where people would look at it and say that's horrible what they did to those kids, and that's a horrible way that they neglect and no food. And I've met a lot of parents who were addicted and couldn't take care of their kids. And I've met a lot of parents who maybe had mental health issues and didn't know how to take care of their kids, or they were parented the wrong way and they never learned how to do it. But I never met a parent who was F my kid. I don't care what happens to him. You know what I mean? And that's hundreds of people. And so my answer to your question is yes, they were a product of their environment, but they were a product of the environment, and the people were still doing the best they could. And it's not in a judgmental way that I say that. It's just they never learn. I mean, a lot of this stuff is multi-generational, man.
It's hand-me-downs.
Yeah, man. Go back in my family tree, go back in your family tree, and you'll see that there's a long history of stuff, right? It's not like we appear one day and all of a sudden things start to get screwed up. I mean, my dad went through things, my mom went through things, your dad went through things, your mom went through things. And it's see, the problem is in our world, we're told this bullshit sort of Storybook thing that life is like a Hallmark movie. And we're all going to Christmas is going to be it'll come and it'll be the perfect amount of tension. And then at the end, we'll sing Christmas carols together and make Christmas ornaments. And then I come to my house and I'm like, well, this isn't Hallmark. It's what's the mashed potatoes for? And they're over there fighting in the corner and people are.
Mine was like having Christmas with the Griswolds.
That's right. The Griswold, yeah, it was like the Griswolds, and it's like the Griswolds on crack in my house, and it was and you're and then you start, and you're kind of what's wrong with me? Why is my family not normal, and why are we not doing what we see? But the reality is we are normal. That is the normal experience. We've just been sold a bunch of bullshit by marketing and by advertisements and that kind of stuff. That's not the real world. The real world is messy and gritty, and raising a family is hard, and being part of a family can be tough. And so we acknowledge that, and I learned that early on in my career. And then I brought it into what we're doing at FAVOR Greenville and those type of things. Big deal for us.
I catch your family group, online. You do it once a week. I think you're doing a phenomenal job with the group and in your presentation. Well, the question I want to ask is what is the goal with doing family group?
So we do. So that's kind of what we do is we figure how can we help the family So the first thing is knowledge is power. I think you said, you and I talked earlier today, and you used that phrase, and I agree. So the first thing is you got to know what you're dealing with. And so you start with just the basic stuff around addiction is not a moral issue. It's not a bad, it can be bad behavior, but it's manifest because of like irrational, a brain issue, literally a neurobiological brain issue. And so we really pound the heck out of that. And when we do it, we frame it up to the family like this. I'm not making an excuse for your loved one. I'm not saying it's okay for him. I'm just telling you the game that you're playing here. And you need to understand that when you go home tonight and you want to confront him and you think you're going to talk him into a better decision, he's not hearing you. He's irrational. His brain isn't working. So there's a lot of information on the basics of addiction. And then we move into the family recovery part, which we see as in two different ways. Higgy, it goes like this. It's like family recovery involves stress management. How do you take care of yourself, and how do you make sure your head doesn't explode while you're dealing with your loved one? And the second thing is, how do you set boundaries? Everything else falls into those two categories. Setting boundaries will be like, that's all the intervention stuff. That's all the things we used to call tough love, which is really not tough love. It's just love. It's just the appropriate expression of love means you have to set boundaries. Like, I have a 5-year-old. If he wants to drive my car tonight, I got to be like, no, dude.
Right.
And so we teach the families how to do those two things. I'll be honest with you. A lot of times they're more receptive to doing the boundary stuff because they don't understand how taking care of themselves has anything to do with the process. They want to save their loved one. So we do interventions. We do a lot of interventions. I'm a certified Arise interventionist, and then we have 2 other people. And we also do a lot of family meetings. That's just our terminology and we've gotten pretty good at this, where we can get a person to come in, and we don't do it in an intervention way, but we sit down and we have a meeting, and the coach like nudges the person toward treatment, nudges the person toward recovery. You know what I mean? They kind of side with the parents, and they become the voice of reason. So I'm sitting there talking, like Chris is arguing with his mom. I don't need this, but then you get Rich in the room as a third party, and we do this. But it's not an intervention, because we do interventions too. And if you guys have been part of an intervention, you know that those things are intense and they're staff intensive. And
are the interventions as successful as they used to be?
Yeah, they are. They're very successful. And even those family meetings, it's about 65% of the time we're able to get the person to go do something.
That's great odds.
I mean, but with the interventions are very, very successful. Now, sometimes they're not successful exactly how you want it to go. And this is just my take on it. So let's say I'm doing an intervention on Chris, and I want to get him into rehab. He needs to go to rehab, but he won't go. But I get him to agree to intensive outpatient. He's going to go to 12-step meetings. And he's going to come back and see me. Like, we would say that that's successful because he's starting something. Right. I wanted to sell the car. I wanted to sell the car for $50,000, but I'm going to get $25,000. That's better than walking away with no kind of commitment. And then, of course, we would work on Chris. We would then work on that relationship, and we believe in the long game. We're going to chip away at you, dude. Like we're kind of like a bad rash. We don't go away if you don't. I mean, we'll call you. We'll kind of come by the house and say hi. And the theory being that eventually we're going to get here. Yeah, it's kind of like, how do you view the world? And if you view the world like from the idea, like, you give people the benefit of the doubt and you say like they want the best for themselves, right? And if you give the person a chance to talk about this and get to know people in recovery, I believe that 9 times out of 10, they're going to gravitate toward recovery.
Absolutely.
The problem is that just so many people never give themselves a chance with that. Does that make sense? It's not, absolutely. They just don't come around, man. 9 out of 10 people never come. And
we gotta go find them.
That's where our model came up with the emergency room, for example. Like, we're going to go to you. We're going to show up at your bedside. And I mean, that's phenomenal, guys. Like, you would think that somebody that overdosed would want to go to treatment, and they don't. Right. Never do. They want to go. What do they want to do? They want to go get high. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is we find them the next day and the next day and the next day. And the team goes out, and then they eventually get to that next level that they need to get to. Right. But it's not immediate. It's counterintuitive on how that goes down.
Yeah, when you're using, your most important relationship when you're using is your connection, and then it turns out that our most important connection or most important relationship we have in our recovery is a connection. But it's how do we get to make that connection is the difference. Most people don't even get to understand who we are, right?
Right. And so Favor Greenville. So we opened the doors in 2012. So Favor Greenville is a recovery community organization, a recovery community center where, a whole different model. When we first got into it, I come from a very traditional treatment model. I was a clinician, therapist. I've been clinical director of several different rehabs. That kind of thing. But when we started Favor Greenville, the idea was we wanted to do something completely different. And so what we did was we opened up the doors, free services, funded by philanthropy, funded by charity. And the idea was you can come in, whether you're an addict or not, whether you're a family member, if you want to talk for 1 minute or you want to talk for 1 day or you want to talk for a year and just keep coming back, you can. The idea was you get professional coaches around to help connect people and we really trained the coaches at being very tolerant and really stepping out of their own stuff and saying like, hey man, just because you got a sponsor and you went to 90 meetings in 90 days, that doesn't mean Chris is going to do that. So I'm going to meet Chris where he's at, and I'm going to go out of my way to get him to keep coming back. And because what's going to happen is Chris is going to want what we have if he keeps coming back. But if if I go at Chris too hard, if I get in Chris's face, he's going to.
It's about making our recovery look attractive to somebody else.
Exactly.
So that that helps with the contempt prior to investigation and the negativity associated with being in recovery.
Well, and then it was hard for me, man, because I'm an NA guy, and I was like, and people thought like, oh, over at Favor Greenville, they're okay in use, because like if Chris came in. I'll give you an example. Like if Chris came in and he was on heroin, but he was saying he was smoking weed, like we wouldn't blast him for that. Not at all. Like we'd be like, well, come on, let's talk about that. Well, people would be like, oh shit, over at Favor Greenville, they're fucking packing bowls during meetings and shit. Like,
oh wow.
And maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but like
not the community that I know. They do that.
It was like we're not okay in bad behavior. That's not what's going down. What it is look, man, it's a process. I know it was for me. I had to go through what I went through. And if I can get a coach to walk through that with somebody while they're trying to figure it out, maybe they'll come in a year early than they would have.
Right.
Maybe because I can tell you could do a lot of damage in a year. And if you can cut a year off of using, then you can save some lives.
That's right. You got to have a starting point, a jumping off point, and I give you props for your consistency and trying to break those walls down and connect with people.
My very best decision was when I was in pre-recovery. When I was in pre-recovery, I made the decision, hey, man, I need to stop. And I made the decision while I was still in my addiction. I was able to do it.
Yeah. To me, that's when the decision is made, because when I was high, I knew I had a problem and I knew I needed to find a solution. But when I started going into withdrawal, there was no other thinking going on in my head but to get more. And then that's why that window of opportunity is so small to get somebody the help that they need.
I think the hardest thing that we deal with today is that we have people like I would absolutely be using against my own will. Right. I remember crying and screaming while doing the deal. Here I am jamming myself and tears are coming out of my eyes. I don't want to do it, but I have to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where it really I call the monster's grip. The monster's really got a grip of you, sure. and that's where that self-preservation starts to show up somehow, and thank God it did. But I took mine to the very end, and people don't have to these days go to the very end of addiction. They can stop now when they run into people like you down there at Favor Rich and people like Higgy and all the other people out there, when they meet us, they have one of the greatest opportunities of making a decision to stop once they've met with us. But it's how they get to meet us.
And can we, as we define what we need to do as a country, and we start to deal with this epidemic, and we all deal with losing people, can we challenge ourselves to step out of our own way and say, you know what, like, I understand how this works at the end of the day, and I would love everybody to do what I did. But in the meantime, I'm gonna meet you where you're at, man, and I'm gonna love you. And especially if I'm a professional, this is where it is. Especially like FAVOR Greenville is a professional organization with 18 paid staff, and they need to act right, man. They need to understand that they're dealing with a public health issue, and they got to get their ass in there and get in. If you are FAVOR Greenville has two rules. One is you're not allowed to be mean. You can't be mean. And the second is people over policy. We don't have policies in place that keep the staff from doing what they need to do. So, for example, if you decide you got to drive somebody to a rehab that's 6 hours away because that's the only place you can find, yeah, you're allowed to do it, and we'll reimburse. And so, get all the bullshit out of the way. And basically, well, you're kissing their ass. You're kissing their ass. You know what? You can I'm kissing your ass. Fine. I'm trying to keep them in the game. I'm trying to keep their head in the game long enough till they can start to make some of these decisions, like you guys were
Absolutely.
talking.
Yeah, I really believe in multiple pathways to recovery as well, and keeping people alive long enough so they can find a viable path to recovery. How important do you think peer support is in the whole scheme of things?
So in our case, that's our whole model. So what we did was we moved away from, any certain academic degree or any certain license. Everybody who works at FAVOR Greenville is a recovery coach or a family recovery coach. We have about 8 family recovery coaches. And so those are family members that went through it. So it's 100% a peer model. FAVOR Greenville is one of 11 organizations around the country that's accredited as a peer recovery center. So it's a council on the accreditation of peer recovery support services. And this is just, this is a shameless FAVOR plug. But in 2017, we were named a model program by the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. And then in 2018, we got the same award by the Department of Justice. So guys, FAVOR Greenville has been named the #1 program by the people who treat you and the people who lock you up. And so that's rarefied air. And it's all because it's all the peer model. It's all the peer model. What we do is we find people in recovery and we train them and teach them how to do these things. And then here's the other thing that we're proud of. We let them run. We do not we let them figure it out. You know what I mean? Like because we're a recovery community organizations, we don't have to have all those rules that I had to deal with when I was working in treatment. I know what it's like to run a treatment center and have to deal with all that shit. I mean, I dealt with it for 15 years. You're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that. So you're not allowed to go to someone's house or you're not allowed to, see somebody.
Ride, yeah.
Yeah, man. Bullshit. We're going to do all that. Now, I believe there's a place for everything. You got to have all those things, right? You got to have treatment centers. You got to have different types of treatment approaches, but you also need this peer recovery part of this.
So if somebody is interested in becoming a peer support specialist in your area, can you give them a quick rundown on how to get involved in the program?
So if you look at it, we have three sites in South Carolina. And if they're in South Carolina, they'll know where these places are. Greenville is the main site. We also have one in Spartanburg County and Anderson County. If you go to favorgreenville.org, we'll have the recovery coach training schedule. We have one coming up at the end of the month, actually, I think in Spartanburg. And then they would just send in their application, and the application is pretty straightforward. We do a background check, but I'll tell you, FAVOR Greenville, this is the one place where if you have a record, it's a resume builder.
That's right. It usually is.
Yeah, and so but we do a background check because we kind of have to for some liability stuff, but we've never had to say no to anyone. And then we do the training, and then most people start off as volunteers, and they'll volunteer for us for a period of time, and then we've had a pretty good track record with being able to employ some people.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Are there any prerequisites that you're looking for coming in?
No, man, we want to have recovery. We'd like to have a year of recovery. Now, I will tell you that I will bring people in earlier too, because I'm also not one of these guys who, like, how do I want to say this? Like, I think time in recovery is important, but I'll give you an example. Like, if you have somebody who slips up, if you have somebody who's in recovery for like a year or 2 years and they make a mistake, and let's say they're back out there for a month, they don't lose that recovery. They
Right.
And so I don't want to get too tied into time. Does that make sense? I want to talk more about who is the person, what is their experience, what do they bring to the table. So we do have like some general requirements, but we're always open to conversation. So my advice would be, if anybody's in that area, they would reach out to us.
You heard it, guys. Contact Richard Jones. I'm sure he accepts Facebook messages.
Facebook Messenger or the website, Favor Greenville website. There's an email where you can send it. It'll actually go to our volunteer coordinator and our coaching staff, and then people can get involved. There are a couple other organizations in South Carolina that aren't directly under our jurisdiction. Myrtle Beach has one. Rock Hill has one, and also Columbia. But we coordinate with those folks.
Beautiful.
Bobby Brazel's on this. He wrote a program called Midlands Recovery. They're also available, and I know they're doing a training very soon. If you're out there, Bobby, do give a shout out on when your training is. So, and you can also get involved. There are what's that?
Oh, go ahead. That was my feedback.
Okay. Yep. So there are other places too where you can get it done. And then of course there are state trainings that come out, and our training lines up with those. But we're big advocates of peer recovery. We think that's a good way. That's part of the future here. We got to get that going.
Well,
I agree with you.
Hadn't peer recovery shown to have better results than even?
Well, I think it matters what you measure. I think the problem with peer recovery is it hasn't been measured enough.
Oh, it hasn't been measured enough.
We're in 2 clinical studies with Clemson University, where the first study that we're in has been real impressive. We are meeting people in the hospital who have like chronic conditions related to substance use, like liver disease, that kind of thing. And the results early on, after about 90 days, are impressive. Average drinking days or average using days in our condition is 2. Average using days in treatment as usual is 21.
Right,
so you're starting to see, but this is all still pretty new. And you guys know how it works. It's all just the new stuff. You're the new kid on the block. You kind of got to prove yourself.
Yeah. Plus, you're expanding in other areas too, right?
So we added 2 sites. We've added Spartanburg County, which is another county, and then Anderson County, and then we've added 5 emergency rooms where we're in 5 different EDs.
That's huge. That's huge being in emergency rooms.
Yeah,
that's very exciting. That's very exciting.
Too, the phone line, Operation Rescue.
Go ahead.
Operation Rescue was interesting. So Operation Rescue started because we had a girl who came in for state-funded treatment. So she comes in and we get her into a program. She had no insurance, and we got her into like the state-funded program, and she died while she was on the waiting list.
Right.
So we were like, and she was like 22, 23. And we were like, what can we do different? This is bullshit. We did everything we were supposed to do. And so we realized that there's no professional drug and alcohol crisis line in South Carolina. There just isn't. I don't know what it's like in other states, but there's no place you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we created that line, and we invested in it. And what we said was, we're going to put time, energy, and money into this program. We pay staff to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so anybody can call. What's interesting is it's mostly families. It isn't the original intent was the person who needed recovery, but it's been mostly families.
Right.
That kind of thing. And so, that's popped up as well. The other project that we got going down, and I think Chris has a link to this, is brand new, where we launched this service for families and for businesses mainly, also healthcare systems, but it's just an online educational platform, which has taken a lot of our family stuff. Like, so a lot of the stuff that I do on Monday nights, for example, we put in much more professional videos. And, you know, on Monday night, it's just me and my camera. And many times my camera malfunctions. I'm convinced pharma is like interfering with my camera.
Right.
Yeah. But so that's uturn.net is that online educational platform where we're trying to get some of this information out. It's much more professional. You know, it's really well done, but it's the same idea. How can we connect to people? How can we educate people? How can we get families information? Knowledge is power.
It's mainly presented for the people that aren't part of the recovery world, the regular people out there in the real world.
Yeah, it's real strategic. We got real psychological on that. We got like all CIA-like. And we were like, how do we say, you know, how do we say this stuff in a way that will connect to people who aren't willing to hear it yet? And so we use different type of language. And we have one of the programs is for people who got busted like with a dirty urine, and it's me talking, and I'm just up front, and I open up the video with me saying, you got busted, didn't you, dude? All right. You know, let's talk about where we go from here. And
Right.
It's all these like strategies around trying to, like, again, if you think about the overarching vibe is let's find ways to talk to keep people coming back, keep people tuning in, which is different than I was told. When I came into recovery, man, they were like, you're going to do exactly what I told you to do, dude. And you're going to do it. And if you don't, like, go out and have more pain and come back when you want.
If you don't want what we have, go out and drink some more.
Well, and so the thing was that worked for me, man. Okay. But I'm telling you, like, when 73,000 people are dying a year of an overdose.
You can't say that to people anymore.
And suicide, I mean, I was talking to Higgy about this earlier. Like, the other thing we can't forget about is 45,000 people killed themselves last year. And
wow,
that is a record number too. And how many of that had to do with substance use? I mean, you can use your imagination, but a shit ton had to do with substance use.
Absolutely. And mental health.
So we got to figure out a way to get those guys. We got to have like a soft place for them to land.
Right.
Absolutely. Because it's not okay. I mean, the young people that are committing suicide now is at an all-time high, and it just seems like it's trendy to do that and acceptable, and it's not okay.
You know, Rich,
Right.
you wrote that article, that blog a couple of weeks back that went on the Medium about hitting bottom, right?
Yeah.
You talked about how the Minnesota model got involved with treatment, and then how it kind of morphed away from that, and the kind of how we all got stuck with this addiction treatment model that we utilize.
Right.
Today.
I've spent a good deal of time like kind of studying the history of treatment, mainly because it's sort of like a hobby, to be honest with you. I like reading about it. I like learning about it. And what happened was Alcoholics Anonymous, quite frankly, 12-step folks were the only ones willing to work with people with this issue. And we know why that is, because we're hard to work with. We're very hard to work.
Absolutely.
So, Alcoholics Anonymous were the only ones, and so naturally they were involved in starting these programs.
Right.
They just used what they knew, man. They didn't do anything wrong. They were just sharing their experience, strength, and hope. Then what happened was, and this is my words, I believe what happened was it became over-commercialized within treatment centers to a certain degree. It became this overarching idea that you got to hit bottom and you got to do what we tell you to do.
Yeah.
And that took off. And we got to reassess that. And we got to say, yeah, there's a place for that. But we also, I'll give you some examples. Like, if we can't do it anywhere else, we should definitely do it with like mental health. We should be looking at like different ways to approach people who are like really, truly depressed, schizophrenia, bipolar type 1. Like, come on, man. And then also like deep end trauma. I got to tell you, like, it was hard for me to recover until I dealt with what went on with my dad. And so, what's that all about? And how do we mix that in with the old model and really, really get intentional? And I know a lot of people are working on that, but we got to do more of that. We got to really, really pound away at that. That's important. Have somebody,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was going to say addressing the trauma issues it's a huge part of the puzzle for me. And
Yes,
I know a large portion of our population suffer with PTSD of some sort.
Yeah.
And the
Some people
AC,
say
the ACEs thing is
everybody does.
a big topic over here in England. You know, we don't have the treatment centers like they do in America, but what they do have is people talk about mental health here quite a bit. But
Do they? Okay.
they're really specifically, they're talking a lot about the adverse childhood experiences. You know, myself, when I was going through the process of the recovery steps and talking to my sponsor, telling him my entire life story, I'd get to that point in my life where my mom put me in the orphanage. I walked away and we just go right through it. He wouldn't say, hold on a minute, I need to talk to you about this part first. Now, when I go back to a psychiatrist in 2015, he's the one that opened up my eyes to, hold on a second, Chris, what happened that day? And I described it to him. He says, how is it that you even remember that day? You were 3 years old. And that the impact it had on me at that time was so significant that I can still hear her feet on the tile floor every time I think about it. And when I hear some girl walking down the street and her heels are hitting the tile, it brings up that angst or that feeling again. And that is significantly, what do they call that? It's in the developmental stage where you create that neuroplasticity in your brain and stuff like that. It develops wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
and then all of a sudden, like a week later, Chris, or like, a day later, you're in a bar getting hammered and you don't even know why, because you don't realize this shit triggered you. And and then you go to a meeting and well-intentioned people tell you, well, there's no reason to pick up no matter what. And you're like, fuck that, dude. Like, my life is in danger.
Not willing.
In an orphanage. Like don't tell me.
And get the desired chip.
Yeah.
I'm not taking my chips once. She gave them to me in a gallon bag. And it was the last time she gave them to me. And there must have been 150, 200 of them in there. And I said, well, I better take them back to the club so they can recycle them.
That's right. So I think all
shame, almost like, that part where we come back and we've got our head down and we're hurting and we have to go in there. It's almost like that one little thing that we do in the 12-step process. I don't know if it's through tradition or whatever, but that walk of shame, it's almost stigmatizing in its own self. That you walk up there and you got to put yourself in front of all these people that you failed at something. When in fact, what the real story is, no, you haven't failed at anything. You're just coming back.
It's a willingness aspect.
Yep. And so here's the thing about that Chris. And so the idea is that the 12-step programs, they're going to do what they got to do, and they should, because what are they? They are an autonomous, unpaid organization, right? Like they are volunteer. My sponsor was a dude who worked 80 hours at Panera Bread. I mean, he could barely keep his eyes open. He had no ethical responsibility to learn anything other than his experience. He had no ethical responsibility to share anything other than his experience, strength, and hope. So I don't begrudge the rooms at all. What I'm saying is that the professional world needs to jump in here, and maybe it's recovery coaches that you specifically teach them how to listen to trauma.
Right.
And maybe it's just listening. Maybe you don't have to say anything at all. Maybe you just needed to tell your story, Chris, and maybe nobody needs to say anything. Because I got to tell you, I've been on the other end of those trauma conversations as a therapist, and I got to tell you, many times I don't know what to say. I'm just like, I'm literally thinking in my head, Rich, just please don't say anything stupid, right? Just like listen. And so, but I do think we need to get intentional as a society on those type of things. And then the other thing I was going to say is we got to get real strategic on how we deal with younger people.
Right.
And we got to acknowledge there's a difference between a 42-year-old alcoholic and an 18-year-old heroin addict.
Right.
And, and we better start to figure that out as a country too.
Because age of first use is very significant, isn't it?
Age of first use, and then just all the social issues that go along with that, and the reality that they're going to want to say things like, "Hey, listen, I'm going to quit heroin, man, but I'm probably going to drink when I turn 21." I mean, if I'd have said to my sponsor, "I'm going to quit pills, but I'm going to drink," he'd have punched me in the fucking face. I'm convinced. mean, I really think that he would have punched me in the face.
He's a good sponsor, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's okay. Dude, that was okay because I was 29 years old. I'd already drank my whole life. I had all these other experiences. But when you're 18, we got to meet that kid where he's at and understand he never even had a legal drink. He probably, how about maybe he never even got drunk? And so how do we have those conversations? And here's the thing, the last thing I want to say about this is that it's got to be us in recovery leading this way.
That's right.
This is where we got to get out of our own way, and it can't be about Rich's recovery because no one else is going to do this, and we've already left it up to like the just straight professionals. I'm a therapist, and the therapists have already tried to do this. Right. It's going to be recovering people, but we will not accomplish it if we make people do it the same way we did it.
Absolutely. Everything has evolved.
Yep. If we expand our minds and say, what do I know about my recovery that I can meet this? I'm telling you, it's some of the most powerful interactions I've ever seen is between I've had recovery coaches who were hardcore, like 12-step guys who opened their mind for a minute. And I've seen them have a conversation with somebody on medication-assisted treatment. And it's magical, dude. Because what happened is that kid,
perception.
That kid who was never accepted in rooms and stuff is finally accepted by this guy that he admires.
A connection.
This guy learned how to talk differently about it. It's like this wave of like hope that's hard to explain. But recovering people we got to step out of our own way to do that. And that's our mission. That's like the FAVOR Greenville mission. That's where we're at, and that's where we think that like kind of our niche or our pathway in this process is.
Right. I love your approach to it. And because we have a whole generation of kids dying without the benefit of a second chance, the whole concept of, you got to hit bottom. I really believe we need to do away with that notion and perception because these kids are being robbed of their bottom with the drugs that they're doing and not getting the benefit of a second chance. Like I have had, I've hundreds of thousands of second chances, but times have changed. The research chemicals have changed the whole game. It changes the brain chemistry in ways we've never seen before. It aggravates and agitates mental illness. There's got to be more pathways to recovery. To embrace more of our population.
Yep,
absolutely.
And I think recovering people have to lead that. And in order for us to lead that, we have to let go of our own preconceived ideas on what preconceived.
That's right.
Here's what will happen if we don't get.
This is a good interview, Richard. Doggone it! Yes. I love this.
Yes, good deal, guys. Anytime, man. Let me know how else I can help. But keep up with.
I want to hear about the Recovery Cartel. What's the concept? I know what it is, but I want you to elaborate.
So we basically here's the Recovery Cartel. I read a book called Narconomics: How to Run a Drug Cartel, and it's all about like cartels and how they're very organized and how they work together and how they're multinational corporations and how they're always inventing new products and they're always coming up with new ways to hook people. And I thought that's what we got to do with recovery. We got to be aggressive. We don't got to go around cutting people's heads off and kidnapping people. We got to be aggressive and we got to like approach it from like a cartel mentality, which is what? Let's get this shit done. Let's go find people.
Consistency.
Yes. And so that's where the cartel came from. And that's what we're all about. And that's where Chris got involved and he helped me create the website. And so it's recoverycartel.com if anybody wants to check it out.
That's cool. I really love that. What else are we supposed to touch on, Chris? U-turn?
About the probably one of the greatest things that I like to talk about with most people is the connections between us. It's Rich and Higgy and even Marty McLeod. That's one of Rich's family recovery coaches now. Yes. We just hooked up Higgy with Marty last week. He was in Dallas.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a week at her home.
In America, they say that there's about 25 million people that claim some form of recovery, right, Rich?
Yeah. Yeah.
every single one of those 25 million people, they know somebody who's not in recovery. They know someone who's hurt right now. Every one of us knows somebody. And it's that one person out there that we could reach out to and just make a connection to. We're not out there to rescue them or save them or enable them or anything like that, but just to make that connection and say, hey, man, we're here, just like what you've been doing in South Carolina, what Higgy does with No More Heroin, and what thousands of others of us do across America. But there's more of us out there. There's 20,000 members to No More Heroin. So that means that there's another 20,000 people out there that are in trouble today, right now. That if people, when they're done with this, watching this video, if they just get on their phone and they say, hey, man, I just want to connect. Can I buy you a cheeseburger, a cup of coffee? Like it did for me. When I popped my head out of the weeds, Tim from Texas EquiSearch, all he cared about is if I had a meal. He said, can I buy a cheeseburger? And I sat down and talked to that guy. And he wasn't an addict or alcoholic. He's the search and rescue guy.
Oh, wow.
He bought me a cheeseburger and he showed me a little compassion. That dragged me out of the crack house. That kind of stuff. Make that connection.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I think the other thing is, if there's a way for us to, bridge the gap from like the recovery world to like the regular world, for lack of a better word, and start connecting to everybody. Like, so here's the other take is, it's probably a community solution in any given community. It's kind of like the vibe has to change around this issue, and it has to become okay for Mrs. Jones to say to her neighbor, I'm worried about my son. I found pills in his room, and not be ashamed about it and not hang her head in disgust, right? Because we say it's a disease, but as a country, do we actually treat it as a disease? And if you look at policies, no, we don't. We lock people up. If you thought it was a disease, every single minimum security jail would be a treatment center. There's no reason why it couldn't be. So we don't think it's a disease policy wise. And so people just on any given day, like right now, there are people out there, there are families that know shit's going down, but they're not going to admit it because it's too shameful. Right. It's too painful and it's too scary. And so they're going to cross their fingers and say, let's just hope he grows out of it, or what? We'll wait till he hits bottom. And that's the vibe that we can change. That's the vibe that we can change as recovering people. That's the vibe that we hope that the world will grab onto. I mean, my deal is talk about it wherever you can. Don't only talk about it at recovery rallies, for example. Like recovery rallies, those are the easy places to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, talk about it wherever you can and educate people. We're the only voice for this. Like literally, like they're not going to hear it anywhere else. I mean, like the preconceived ideas on what people think an addict is. I mean, the fact that the three of us are on here and stuff, like, oh my God, like what if we were in a room with them or steal their wallet, take their big screen TV? Like, what the hell are we going to do? It's like, I'll be on like a play date with how you have to have play dates with your kids these days. You can't just send them out to play. You got to schedule like an appointment. You can hang out with some other parent that you don't. Yeah. And so you'd be like, I'll meet the guy for the first time and he'll be like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, well, I run a nonprofit called FAVOR. Well, that's nice. How'd you get involved with that? Oh, well, I'm in recovery. And it's like, oh, I'm like, well, you fucker, I'm coming over here to steal your shit. Like, don't. It's like, what's the automatic mentality? Like, we're all kind of like these creeps that are just like walking around one way from going back to, and some of us never, like that caricature and that stereotype. How do we challenge that? How do we get people to know, no, we're just regular people, man. We're your doctors, lawyers, we're your plumbers, we're your nurses. We're, that mentality has to change. Yeah. But I think that like the online presence is part of that.
46% of all Americans, right,
know somebody.
Has somebody that knows somebody that's struggling.
153 million people. 150. They report that they intimately know somebody. This isn't like an extended relative. This is like, I intimately know somebody who is either in addiction or has dealt with addiction. That's a lot of people, man.
It sure is. Everybody, I think everybody's been touched by one in some way or another by this. They know somebody, they've lost somebody, they've witnessed it, they've been a part of it. It's just so widespread and just it doesn't show any signs of slowing yet.
Yeah. then be willing to be broken and willing to be like not fake about it and understand. Like I put a Facebook post up the other day. I had the worst day of my life, man. I was like sick and it just felt like the world was crashing down and I felt like I fucked everything up in my life and like so that people know that like people aren't perfect and everybody's struggling and we live in this Facebook world where you put the the perfect filtered picture up and you're like hashtag blessed and no, man, it wasn't hashtag blessed. It was messy. And I think that if we can do that as a country and we can do that as communities, then maybe people get more comfortable.
Right.
So, but hey, speaking of which, guys, I got to help put my kids to bed here, man. It's
okay.
I'm going to have to jump off, guys.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. I'd like to have you back sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. If you had a topic or anything else I can do, let me know, guys.
We'll hook you up.
Good to see you, brother. And I'll be in touch, guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Good night, Rich. Good night, everybody. We're going to end this.
Thanks.
Good night.
I'll see you later.
Bye.